Hello, everybody. My name is Victoria Smith, and I would like to welcome you to session 1240. I'm joined today by the wonderful team from the healthcare, Adam Mahmood, Tyler Kilbury, and Tim Knox. We are 4 members of soon to be a much larger team at Jamf focused on healthcare. We have the same core messages and solutions, but better this year. We have patient experience, which is our healthcare listener, enhancements with our new Jamf parent workflow, clinical communications, single login for frontline workers with shared devices, and of course, telehealth, virtual visits, and securing telehealth and beyond. Jamf is an integral solution to support Apple devices within healthcare settings, from iPads at the patient bedside to iPhones for clinical staff, to record observations and much more. And we can achieve this with our Apple Enterprise Management Platform. Today, the team and I are going to focus on our new healthcare solutions. And with that, I'd love to hand you over to Adam.
Thanks so much, Vix. Now to start, we'd love to dig into patient experience. Many of you may be familiar with this work stream at Jamf Healthcare, something that got its start many years ago. And for just a quick refresher for those of you that may be new, we first started with a solution called Jamf Healthcare Listener many years back. Healthcare Listener is an electronic medical record integration to Jamf Pro, used to automate the management of patient bedside devices. This is a really powerful solution in that it puts the power back in patients' hands to access the utilities they need on a managed device. But it all the while automates the process for IT and minimizes care team intervention to make good on that technology use. But over the years that Healthcare Listener has been deployed at a number of institutions, some customers have challenged us to think differently and explore how we could extend what's possible with Jamf Healthcare Listener. And that's what brings us to a really special request from a leading children's hospital here in the US, Cincinnati Children's Hospital. They had a really simple yet novel and exciting idea. And that was, how could we leverage the Jamf parent application alongside Jamf Healthcare Listener? Now, for those of you that might not be familiar with Jamf Parent, this is an app that has been leveraged alongside Jamf Pro and Jamf School to serve educational customers. What it allows is for a parent or guardian to, from their own device, manage a school-issued device in a limited fashion. It allows them some basic rules and visibility into what's possible on the device. But that capability in the Jamf parent application had never really been explored within the healthcare setting. And certainly when we're talking about in this patient experience workflow, an iPad that's owned by the hospital and temporarily provided to a child, in this case, a pediatric patient, for a short amount of time, there were some new requirements that came up. And more specifically, how do we control how that parent app session is ended when a child is discharged from the hospital? So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Tim Knox to show you this awesome new workflow that was just released this week with Jamf Pro 1032. Tim?
Awesome. Thank you very much, Adam. So we've recently added some new functionality in Jamf to automatically sever the connection between the parent and child device on a wipe. As you can imagine, this adds some pretty cool functionality for parents who may want more control over hospital-provided devices. On the Jamf side, you need to toggle it on in settings and then tell it which smart group you want to have that device to be accessible in. The patient device needs to be a member of the smart group in order to get the feature in self-service. See that icon in the upper right-hand corner? That's what you're looking for, the little two-device looking thing that's right next to each other. It'll open a QR code for the parent device to scan. Just a quick tap and then the QR code will show up. The parent's device scans the code to make the pairing. Any device can be used to make that pairing. This includes Android or Apple devices. Since we aren't managing the parent device, it just has to be able to download the parent app from the store. The Hospital system manages the child device that they're providing at the hospital bed. The parent can come in with their own devices, scan the QR code, and then have greater control over that child's device while they're in the hospital. And you can even have a bunch of devices on that parent app. If you are already a parent using this for a school-age device, you're not going to be replacing anything that may already be used. You can just scan that extra child's device. It's just like you would if they were in school. And you can toggle a bunch of different categories on and off, or you can set a schedule. Maybe you don't want to have access to anything after a certain time in the evening, or you want to make sure they're not being distracted during school hours. You can set that up as ongoing rules in those actions. But let's see it in action, shall we? On the right is my personal iPhone. It's not enrolled in Jamf. It's literally my own personal iPhone I use in my life. I open the parent app, and on it, and in the self-service on the hospital-owned or Jamf managed iPad. It's very easy to scan that QR code. I'm just going to pick it up and run it back over there, and we're in business. This is all done in real time on the devices on my desk at home. And watch how quickly that iPad responds to commands from the parent app. It's actually pretty cool. You'll see here I'm going to flip the games toggle off. And within a few seconds, Candy Crush is just gone right off the app, right off the device. I can tap the entertainment, and Hulu and Netflix or whatever other is in the entertainment category goes away. And then you can untoggle them back and those apps will reappear. It's the same functionality you get when you're setting the schedule. It just happens automatically, and you can be a little bit more granular about which apps you want to deploy, which apps you want to actually control, not deploy. And in the case of the healthcare world, once that patient is discharged, the device will wipe and the connection between the two devices are severed. This can be done with a healthcare listener, just like it's been done in our healthcare organizations that we're doing right now, responding to the discharge command from a nurse, or it could be done with Jamf Reset manually. All right, now I'm going to hand it back to Adam.
Thanks, Tim. So that's Jamf Parent for Patient Bedside, a new way for parents and guardians to have limited remote management capabilities of their child's hospital-issued device. As Tim showed, when the patient's device is remotely wiped by Jamf Healthcare Listener or Jamf Reset, that parent app session is automatically disconnected. This feature is available as of yesterday for the recording time. For those of you watching JNUC Live in October, it's been available for a few months. But again, you need to be up on Jamf Pro 1032, and it works with the Jamf Parent app for iOS or Android. So that's one of our healthcare listener enhancements for today. But it's not the only topic that we wanted to discuss. You know, as I mentioned, there's been leading academic medical centers, as well as adult and pediatric institutions that have leveraged this workflow. And all of them have, been understanding of the current requirement. That is, when Jamf Healthcare Listener ends a device's or a patient's session, we do so by wiping the device. And with the current state of iOS, well, that requires a couple taps on the glass to set up that device for the next patient. Sure, a lot of that process is automated by Jamf and Apple's deployment programs, but it still requires a couple taps to initiate. So the question from one adult hospital: how can we do this process and remove patient data, but not add additional taps back on the glass? And for that, I'd love to bring Tim back in to give you a preview of something we're exploring for a future Jamf Pro release. Tim?
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I want to emphasize this is a preview. It is something we are experimenting with, and I expect that a lot of this functionality will either look or feel a little bit differently when you're actually have it. So there's one thing to remember when thinking about patient data. Data security, HIPAA, and allowing a patient to do anything they want with a hospital-provided device. One of the things I'm most proud of with our efforts in the healthcare space is leveling the technological playing field. Not everyone has the same access to devices like an iPad. With the healthcare listener, we have a chance to give everyone in your hospital the same level of access, but with that access comes some risk. The best way to assure all data is gone from the device is to wipe it. That will always be true. That said, we can remove and reinstall apps as part of the discharge or transfer with this new thing we've been tinkering around with that we're currently calling soft reset. But again, this is a preview, so some of these things I'm going to talk about may look different when it hits product. So if you want to put a few streaming apps and let the patient log in with their own credentials, you can totally do that with this new workflow. You can provide them with games and some other selections by your child life team or whoever would make those choices within your hospital. You can even provide a bunch of apps in self-service that the patient can install on demand. The more freedom you allow on the device, the more likely they are to use it. And something as simple as providing them with an app catalog that they can pick and choose from helps give them a sense of autonomy in a situation where they may be feeling a little bit trapped. So here we're sending a command from our test EMR that we built. It's sending a legit ADT message, which you can see when it acts back a response. Jamf hears that and currently flips an extension attribute so the device moves to a different smart group that doesn't have those apps. And then once all the apps are removed, it enters another smart group, which triggers a webhook that flips the EA back and then rescopes the apps. I even put a little wallpaper change on the smart group that triggers when the EA flips so you can see when it happens. And now the apps are all gone, they'll start to come back online again. The speed at which that happens is totally dependent on your network speeds and the number and size of apps you're attempting to reinstall. Certainly faster than it would take to turn a room between patients, but that's another advantage of putting apps in self-service instead of trying to reinstall everything every time. And you can see some of the actions that happened during that event that I just showed under the console history and the inventory record. It all happens incredibly fast. The apps get removed, and the moment that that happens, the things start getting back reinstalled again. I'm pretty excited to see what happens with this once product really starts noodling on it and starts developing what our customers will be giving us feedback on who are currently trying this out in production right now. There's one thing to remember, though. You have to have currently a smart group that contains apps that you want removed. This means you can't just let the patient install anything they want and still protect their data. It has to be a more prescribed experience for them. This is not a bad thing. It just is. The advantage of doing this method is that you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning and get it back on a network after you wipe a device. No one has to touch the device at all. Everything is completely automated. Now, I'd like to hand it back off to Tyler, who's going to talk about some of our efforts in identity and clinical communications.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Adam. Last year, we had the benefit of sharing some of the ways that we've worked with hospitals on their clinical communications deployments. We'll give you a quick refresher here on those two applications, Jamf Setup and Jamf Reset. Jamf Setup allows a clinician to take a device, select their role, and have that device configured over the air for their shift, giving them access to the applications that they need. Another way that Jamf Setup has been used is in selecting the age at children's hospitals, so the device is configured with age-appropriate content for those children. Both of these are done over the air, and at the end, there's the Jamf Reset app. The Jamf Reset app then resets that device back down so that the Setup app is the only thing available to select. We've had the fortune of working with a lot of hospitals on their clinical communications deployments over the last couple of years, and we've learned a lot. And while these deployments are incredibly efficient, there's still some things that they've asked for and they want more. So what are some of those issues that they've explained to us? Password fatigue is a real problem for users across their applications. Having to re-sign into applications for clinicians multiple times during a shift takes them away from the patient and the other things that they need to do. Access control and user assignment. Making sure that the clinicians have access to the right applications to do their job, and only those clinicians have access to those applications is another issue. And then the end of device handoffs, switching from one clinician to the next at a time that can be very critical when every second counts is another area of pain. Now I'll pass it over to Tim to show you what we've built to help support this workflow. Tim, back to you.
Awesome, thank you. So with our new workflow, you will be able to log in with your Azure credentials in order to begin your shift. Optionally, you can create a device-level passcode at the start of each shift as well. No shared passcodes across your fleet. They can be totally unique to you. So unique, in fact, that you can even allow for biometrics, Face ID and Touch ID at the start of your shift that will be cleared at the end. In this example, I will be showing a user logging in with a user that is a nurse. Now we know they're a nurse because that role is assigned to them in Azure. Because we're able to read that value, we can populate an extension attribute in Jamf and use it to trigger some workflows. Now, as I type my password in here, in a moment, you'll see a screen flash past. Those of you who've used setup in the past will recognize that as the role selection screen. But because we know the role, it'll pick it and just move right on forward. Now we know a nurse has the device, and we can change the wallpaper and reveal the apps that the nurse will need. And apps that support it will be signed in. True Apple native, over-the-air, single sign-on. And at the end of the shift, the nurse will simply open reset and end the shift. This clears the device passcode if you've set it, including biometrics, and the nurse value in the EA, putting it back to the null state, back to the pre-selected state. You can see that wallpaper changing back. It will also clear the single sign-on token and sign out of the apps that support that workflow. Now, as with all the things that I've shown today, that video was recorded in real time. It really does happen that fast. I can see this being incredibly valuable for any team that is using Azure as their IDP. This is something that our team can help you get set up and testing very quickly, and our documentation on how to get this set up can help you get started. In fact, one of those people that can help you get it set up is Vix, who I will now hand back control. Vix?
Well, thank you, Tim. Whilst much has evolved in telehealth over the last year, I wanted to reflect on some of what we shared at last year's JNUC. Jamf launched virtual visits as a video conferencing integration to Jamf Pro, underpinned by Microsoft Teams or Zoom. It was designed to simplify interactions for patients and their family and healthcare providers, empowering patients to maintain their own well-being. Virtual visits is a great addition to any set of telehealth tools you're already using, with the reassurance of compliance without complication. The story that we all know and love was from our dear friends at Oxford Health NHS Foundation Trust.
So here's my iPad, and it's just so simple. I just open the app on the dock and enter my family or friend's email address. Once I hit send, I can start the meeting. No login or password required. Hi! And to prep the device for the next patient, I can tap on this button here. Jamf Pro runs the virtual visits integration to Microsoft Teams and generates a new meeting link, protecting patient privacy.
UC San Diego Health deployed virtual visits with Zoom last year, as did UC Health, but they deployed it with Microsoft Teams, as did Geisinger Health. All three of these healthcare providers have seen an increased demand for these workflows in recent months. But at the same time, all three organisations are using EMR integrated and standalone telehealth software solutions to provide a wider array of telehealth services, many of which run on Apple devices. Which leads me to Wandera. More than ever, with the increase of mobile devices in healthcare, it is now a requirement to secure mobile endpoints. As you know, we have an even greater capability of managing and securing those mobile fleets at scale. Private access can connect users to healthcare applications securely using Zero Trust network access. Data policy. Well, with Wandera, it allows you to truly understand how data is being used and can support you with content filtering and usage controls. And lastly, but by no means least, the award-winning threat defense for mobile endpoint protection. I'm excited to share our very own Jamf and Wandera healthcare customer story. Berkshire Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. I recently met with Matt Winter and Robin Brown from the Trust, who had the following to say. Several years ago, we decided that it was time to grow up and procure a best-of-breed MDM solution to replace the bargain basement product we had. And after considerable research, we concluded that Jamf was the best. It's not very often you can buy a new system in IT that you can just pick up and run with. And it being hosted was also a bonus for us, as it fitted our cloud-first strategy. We currently have 3,500 enrolled devices, which includes our recent 25% increase in device demand. And Jamf has supported us at all levels when needed. To add to the mix, Wandera has saved us a fortune in data charges, clarified our security posture on mobile devices, as well as showing us how, what, and where users are using the mobile devices. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Matt and Robin for their continued support of Jamf and Wandera. And I know that we're looking forward to what's on the roadmap, gents. While we focused on a number of specific solutions for patient experience, telehealth, and clinical communications, know that we are here to help you with whatever Apple healthcare initiative may be. Whether your organisation is brand new to Apple or you have an advanced mobility practice, we would love to help. And with that, I'd like to thank you for joining this session. Please check out all of our other healthcare sessions on the healthcare track at JNUC.